Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into something really quite unexpected, a dramatic shift, it seems, from U.S. President Trump regarding Russia and Ukraine. We're here to sort of navigate these insights, help you grasp the strategy, the potential economic ripples, and, well, what it all means for the bigger picture. Okay, let's unpack this.
Indeed. It's a highly complex situation unfolding. And our deep dive today offers, I think, a unique window into the motivations, maybe the potential consequences of these actions. We'll try to connect the dots on how these decisions could reshape things globally and, what they reveal about the conflict itself.
So let's dive right in. What's actually been announced? Here's where it gets really interesting. U.S. President Trump has made a significant shift, expressing pretty strong dissatisfaction with Russia and with Russian President Putin personally.
And the main news, the big headline, is this new substantial weapons package for Kyiv. We're talking estimated around $10 billion, delivery expected apparently very soon in the coming days.
Wow, $10 billion. What's in it?
Well, it includes 17 Patriot anti-aircraft missile systems, something Ukrainian President Zelensky has been asking for a long time, plus air-to-air missiles and howitzer shells, too.
Okay, Patriots are significant, but the really strategic part, maybe the game changer, isn't just the Patriots. There's talk, serious consideration apparently, of providing Ukraine with Tomahawk cruise missiles, which, reportedly have the range to hit Moscow or St. Petersburg. I mean, that feels like more than just aid. It feels like changing the rules.
You hit it exactly. The Tomahawks, if delivered, that's an unprecedented direct threat capability against the Russian heartland. It's not just stepping up military help. It forces a whole reevaluation of Russia's established red lines. It raises huge questions about where the conflict goes next.
Right. And beyond the military side, there's this economic bombshell, too, this announcement of 100% tariffs for countries buying Russian energy. That's primarily aimed at India and China, right? Which could trigger, global economic upheaval.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, U.S. President Trump has actually tied this economic threat to diplomacy. He set a 50-day deadline for a peace agreement on Ukraine. But, given the situation on the ground and Kyiv getting all this new military aid, the chance of a deal like that in 50 days, it seems very low, especially if Kyiv isn't willing to concede territory now.
Okay, so where did this all come out? The announcement itself happened during a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Root.
That's right. And there have been these ongoing talks, between NATO and the U.S. president about NATO members increasing military spending, aiming for 5% of GDP.
And Root himself is interesting in this context.
Very. He's generally seen as a hawk in international politics. As former Dutch PM, he directly accused Russia over the Malaysian Boeing crash back in 2014. And in this recent White House meeting, Root apparently criticized Russia for not sending, quote, serious people to peace talks in Istanbul. He specifically mentioned them sending a historian.
A historian? Wow. How did Russia respond to that?
The Russian Foreign Ministry called Root's comments abracadabra. They sort of pushed back, saying historical knowledge is important. It reflects this ongoing tension where Root previously said, look, Russian President Putin himself needs to be at the table, not some envoy or historian.
So underlying all this, what's driving the U.S. President Trump's personal frustration here?
Well, it seems like deep disappointment. He's reportedly said conversations with Russian President Putin seem magnificent, but then right after, rockets hit Kyiv. He even used this analogy, sort of implying, maybe Russian President Putin fooled others, but he won't fool him. It really suggests he feels his own peacemaking efforts are being undermined, like there's no follow-through from the other side.
Okay, so piecing this together.
Right.
What are the likely objectives behind this whole shift for U.S. President Trump? 3 main goals seem possible.
That seems right. First, maybe achieving some kind of political win, even symbolic, that he feels Russian President Putin hasn't delivered. Second, turning this diplomatic stalemate into an economic, perhaps through these arms sales, generating revenue. And third, potentially geopolitical gains. The idea that a prolonged conflict weakens the countries involved and the U.S., sort of standing back slightly, benefits. That's a classic pattern in big wars, unfortunately.
And the way these arms are being delivered is interesting too, isn't it? It's not straightforward.
No, it's quite a specific scheme. The president stated these new weapons, the Patriots included, won't come directly from U.S. stockpiles to Ukraine. Instead, certain NATO allies will provide them. Then The U.S. restocks those allies. And here's the key part. European nations pay the U.S. for that restocking.
Ah, okay. So it fulfills that campaign promise about reducing direct aid.
Exactly. It generates profit for the U.S. defense industry, and it aims to shield the U.S. from claims of being directly involved in escalating the fighting.
Got it. And the specific weapons, besides Patriots, you mentioned air-to-air missiles.
Yeah, things like AMRAAMs, medium and short-range missiles. Good fit for the F-16s Ukraine is expecting. They're effective against cruise missiles, which is crucial. And also these NAMS ground-based systems, which use similar missiles. So it provides layers of defense, primarily defensive stuff, mostly.
But back to the Patriots for a second. You mentioned 17 units. Does that mean 17 full batteries or just launchers? Because that's a huge difference.
That is the crucial question, and it's unclear from the announcement. 17 batteries would be massive. Ukraine currently has maybe 8 or so. You'd need, people estimate, at least 20 batteries to fully cover a big city like Kyiv. But if you meant 17 launchers, well, that translates to maybe 3 full batteries, similar to what Israel has. So yeah, that detail really matters for the actual impact on the ground.
Okay, let's switch gears to the economic pressure. These 100% tariff, they're called secondary sanctions, right?
That's the term, yes. It's basically the U.S. penalizing other countries, third parties, for doing business with a country the U.S. has sanctioned, in this case, Russia. The clear goal here is to stop countries like India and China from buying Russian energy.
And the 100% figure, is that the point, or is it just meant to be prohibitive?
Exactly the latter. Whether it's 100% or even the 500% that was rumored earlier, the effect is intended to be the same. It creates such a high barrier that it effectively stops the trade. It's not really about collecting tariff revenue. It's about shutting down the flow, breaking supply chains, stopping those gray oil deals where the origin is murky, making banks unwilling to touch the payments.
But that's a risky strategy for the U.S. itself, surely.
Hugely risky. We saw with the previous China tariffs. American importers panicked. And targeting India, I mean, the U.S. has spent decades trying to build that relationship, moving India away from its Cold War alignment with the Soviets towards partnership. This could cause a major rupture.
And the global impact if India and China do stop buying.
Well, experts estimate maybe 70% of Russian oil suddenly has no buyer. That could send global oil prices absolutely soaring. We're talking potential spikes to $100, maybe even $200 a barrel. Massive disruption.
So if the impact is potentially so catastrophic, why the 50-day delay on implementing these tariffs?
Well, there's a pattern, isn't there? U.S. President Trump often sets these deadlines, remember the TikTok situation, and then pushes them back and back again. It leads to some skepticism about whether they'll ever actually fully happen. It definitely creates negotiating room, some space to maneuver.
Does the threat itself work, though? How's Russia reacting?
It's interesting. Initially, the Russian stock market actually went up a bit, and the dollar strengthened there, probably because the sanctions were delayed, not immediate. And Russian officials publicly maintain their usual line. Sanctions don't work against Russia, they just make it more self-reliant. You also see chatter on, say, Russian Telegram channels pointing out what they see as U.S. arrogance in making Europe pay for the arms transfers.
Yet, despite this tough talk and these big moves, U.S. President Trump still wants to be seen as a peacemaker.
It seems so. He still talks about Russia's incredible potential for cooperation. And when reporters ask him directly about escalation risks, he tends to sidestep, keeps his options open, doesn't give a straight yes or no.
So what's the strategy then? Is it about forcing a deal?
It looks less like abandoning the conflict and more like pressuring everyone involved, Russian President Putin, Ukrainian President Zelensky, the Europeans too. He seems genuinely frustrated that talks with Putin go well superficially, but nothing concrete changes. Russia hasn't offered much beyond demands for, essentially, capitulation. So this leads to his idea maybe of the cult peacemaker. You know, peace through strength or peace through coercion. It's perhaps a more traditional U.S. role than pure diplomacy. He seems to need that symbolic victory.
And that brings our deep dive for today to a close. This really is a significant shift from U.S. President Trump. Packed with political strategy, huge economic risks, complex diplomatic maneuvering. It leaves us, I think, with a provocative thought. In this messy global landscape, how much does perceived strength or just the raw threat of economic pain actually shape the outcome of these major international conflicts?
And it raises big questions about the future of alliances, economic ties, especially for countries like India and China, really caught in the crossfire here. The ripples from these announcements could spread very far, even if the tariffs, for example, aren't fully implemented in the end. Just the threat changes things.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We're here to make things clear. New episodes every day.